Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, my very special guests are Nash Kato and Eddie King Roeser of Urge Overkill. You know, for a minute there, back in the mid-90s, it looked like Urge Overkill were going to be huge. Maybe not Nirvana huge, but certainly Smashing Pumpkins huge. For the Chicago trio of Nash, Eddie, and the magnificently named drummer Blackie Onassis, all the stars had aligned. Their fourth album, Saturation, which was also their first on a major label, was one of the best releases of 1993, hands down. The single, Sister Havana, was in heavy rotation and in the top 10. And their faithful, yet somehow ironic cover of Neil Diamond's problematic hit Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon was on the soundtrack to Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. At that moment, they had it all. Until they didn't. Like countless bands before and after them, Urge Overkill just couldn't hold on to the brass ring. After their next album didn't really connect, they imploded due to the usual rock-biz cocktail of drugs, ego, excess, bad decisions, bad luck, and bad timing. Blackie basically dropped off the face of the earth, and Nash and Eddie spent nearly a decade nursing their wounds, popping up from time to time with a new solo album or a new band. Then, thankfully, they buried the hatchet, and in 2011, Nash and Eddie reteamed and released the excellent comeback album Rock Roll Submarine, which featured a return to their old sound. Now, a decade later, they're back again with the similar sounding We, which features more songs from the same sessions, including the best cover of Wham's Freedom I've heard. A while back, Nash and Eddie got on the Zoom to talk about the new album, the old days, their approach to other people's music, and much more. Enjoy.
And Daryl, so you're in Winnipeg right now?
Yes, sir. Where are you?
Yeah, we love Winnipeg. We did like an entire week at I think it was called the Prince Royal Albert Arms or something.
Yeah, the Royal Albert Hotel. Yeah, I know you guys were here all the time back in the medallion days.
Yeah, but we always did better in Canada than we did in the States at the time. So we just did Canada as much as we could.
That was a pretty rough hotel.
Oh yeah, yeah. there was all kinds of hijinks in there. Yeah,
that was what. Yeah, that was probably one of the scuzziest places we ever stayed. They would put you up. It was great because you usually didn't get put up, so you would end up at somebody's house.
Right.
So they're like, "Wow, we get to stay in a hotel," but then you get there and it's like an SRO.
Yeah.
But it was great. You walk downstairs, play a show, and you're done for the day.
Yeah, well, exactly. Living above the store, right?
Exactly.
Well, listen, it is great to have you guys back with a new album. It has been far too long.
Thank you.
What takes you guys so long?
Well, when you're a kid and it's all you want to do is rock, and you'll play to no one or everyone, and like Eddie said, sleep on floors, whatever you have to do, it's all you live for, but you do this for 30 years. I mean, at some point, you develop, personal private lives, Ed raised a son, and things like that, and all of a sudden, like, the band isn't like, you wake up in the morning and that's your number one priority. There's other things to do. You meet other people, do other things, travel, whatever. But but the band's always in your heart. So at some point, you wake up and it says, don't you think it's time you do, make some more music or play some shows or something? But I think it's exponential. The older you get, the more time. Time seems, it loses its meaning or significance, as you get older. I mean, days turn to weeks turn to months, and so on. So, we're not really that aware of these, decade gaps between projects. It just seems like a few years or something. But if you do the math, if you look at a goddamn calendar, like, wow, like, really, it's been 10 years, and you can't really account for it, and yet you can, just with the on-band related, shit.
So if I understand right, a lot of the songs on We are actually ones that you had in some shape or way, shape or form on the previous album, Rock and Roll Submarine. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of them. There are a couple new ones, but they were stuff from the vaults that maybe were things that were unfinished, or we kind of, we had too much to choose from for rock sub, and we sort of ran with whatever was going to make that record. We sort of, chose to finish more like finished songs that were gonna make sense as one one record. But it's almost like that could have been a double album, really, had we wanted to put it out, but that was pretty outrageous and we couldn't really find a way to. Yeah, there were songs that we liked a lot that didn't, so in a way it wasn't meant to have taken 10 years to put out the next one. We were thinking maybe 5, but we didn't want to self-release it, and we had some, we thought they were all good songs. It was just I don't know, just the luck of the draw that some of them were released first. And I hear some of these tunes and I wonder, I think they all could have, I think they're all equally hard to choose. So we had some ideas that were unfinished that didn't exist, but we had enough that we didn't want to just scrap them. And so, yeah.
Okay.
We did have, we had disparate material. The way that recording works now, you can kind of take the stems of your songs that you can kind of take them anywhere. You have your hard drive and, work around with them. And that in a way, having so much freedom to work and to leave songs sort of unfinished, depending on who you're working with, it tends to lengthen the process rather than shorten it. The digital revolution, tends to, we work with people who have never worked with tape or never have had any sense of, oh, the clock is running. And people are always like, well, if this isn't working so great, we can always come back to it, or let's move on to something else. So we just had a whole bunch of stuff, that was works in progress that kind of took a while to get together on.
In that process, I mean, your songs are so, I don't want to say intricate because that makes them sound like, Yes or something, but, every performance on every track, it sounds so good. And it feels like it's very deliberate. Is there a lot of back and forth and trial and error on your songs? I mean, is it, like building things brick by brick?
These days, yeah. I mean, that's the complete opposite from Touch and Go, where they said, you got 2 weekends in Madison, and if it doesn't happen, tough shit. This is $800. That's it, and that type of pressure, or like, Albini's like, they're coming in here to do a commercial in 20 minutes. If we're not out of here, I'm going to kill you guys, and, this is how we were under the gun. And I think for a band, I think we were able to thrive in that environment of having to like shit or get off the pot. Right. But, yeah.
How do you adjust for now then, what you have all the time,
Now, yes, it's become that where, because you are allowed to be more perfectionist, I think we've become more like that, where, you tastefully, you can't put up thousands of tracks. So you're allowed to put things on there and think about it. And I guess that's one of the reasons why it took so long, comparatively.
And
Yeah, but it is crazy. It's so another world from how we used to make records. I mean, like Eddie said, you know, I mean, you know, it's a work in progress. You can carve away at it. You can take it anywhere at any time and just keep adding to it. You know, the clock's not running. So I suppose we took advantage of that. You know, but you know, I mean, that's how you end up with a, you know, with something that sounds so cohesive and smooth. It's because, you know, you're able to chip away at it, and you're not under the gun with a gun to your head. You know, like you know, like I said, you know, you've got a weekend to do this record. And, you know, so I mean, you could say quite literally we took our sweet time, but you know, but since you know the technology's there and it's you know we were able to take our sweet time and just you know and
Boy, did we.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what defines an Urge Overkill song these days?
Well, that's a great
song that doesn't survive this firing squad, or survives this firing squad. We've got, you know, we both have to like it, I guess.
And I'm amazed because you know your sound is the writing style of your songs has always been unique. You know, when I listen to your music, unlike so many other cookie cutter bands where it's like, you know, we've written the verse and we've written the chorus and we've written a bridge or whatever, your songs just seem to have this flow from beginning to end. And I don't know if this is actually something you can explain, but can you explain that?
Well, I think I know how to explain it. You should hear the shit that doesn't make the grade. I mean, all you're hearing is the shit that made the grade, but you know, I mean, you know, like any band, I mean, yeah, I mean, and a lot of these songs, you know, we kicked them around for years, or they got shelved, forgotten about, and it's actually pretty exciting when you discover, you know, remember this one, Ed? You know, and like, oh, I forgot about that one, and you know, then but you see it in a new light, and you know, some fresh ears, and so maybe that has something to do with it, but like any band, I mean, we're you know, there's no dearth of B-sides and outtakes and things like that.
It feels like you're singing a little more on this one, Eddie. Have I got that right?
You know, I don't know if we keep track, but perhaps. You know, I think on the last question, I don't know if we heard this right, but you know, we operate under we sort of heard that, you know, the Stones kind of do the same thing where they kind of throw something down and keep working on. If you see that film where they're doing Sympathy for the Devil, it kind of starts out as a horrible reggae song, or you know, it's like they build it from the
pretty bad. Yeah, the early version is bad.
Yeah, and apparently they were at pains to, or this is what we heard, they were at pains to, as soon as they were done with the final mix, to confiscate whatever was before that led to the, you know, the tracks leading up to like the final mix, and get rid of them so nobody would ever hear that stuff. I mean, nowadays you do have, I did get some bootlegs of the Some Girls record where they're writing the stuff and it's just these sort of scat vocals, and you would never, I mean, knowing the songs, but you would never imagine the brilliance and the finality that you're used to these final takes, and to hear them sort of feel their way towards the songs is sort of, I mean, it was sort of enlightening to me, because it's not like, you know, the final result is not like lightning strikes and there you go. It's like a pretty patient process where, you know, I guess we sort of operated that way.
Trial and error.
Yeah. And yeah, I do think we're pretty conscious of just like another song to add to the pile that has a, you know, lyrics or has a verse, chorus, for, and just if it's too rote, it's just not Urge. It's just not gonna fly. So for it to be, you know, have the Urge stamp, there has to be something about, there has to be something that brings it out of the predictable or the boring, because the world doesn't really need any more rock songs. It's got to have something.
Well,
Well, speaking of unpredictable, I think it takes some balls to open your new album with a Wham cover. How did that one come about?
well, that certainly wasn't planned, but you know, it just kind of came to be. I mean, we haven't done that many covers, but when we do, you know, we tend to focus on maybe some forgotten B-side or some lesser known track. I've never understood bands that cover, some classic, some rock classic gold. I mean, like, there's, why are you covering this song?
That's
I mean,
the most painful. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you hear it and it just makes you want to hear the original. So we always kind of seized upon, lesser known, more obscure tracks, and leaving us to make it our own. That's what we always try to do. Like, well, no one knows this song or no one cares about the song. Therefore we can make it our own, and for that matter, anyone hearing it just assumes that it's yours and you wrote it. So it was just a song that King and I heard on the way out of, we were touring Europe just as an acoustic duo. And it just came on. It just, we didn't know what it was. It was clearly some 80s pop band, but
yeah, we weren't familiar with the Wham catalog or anything.
I mean,
we were exposed to it in a taxi cab somewhere.
Yeah.
Then we had to find, we knew the title of the song was Freedom. That was about it. Nash,
that was the only operative word we had to work with. Yeah, and thanks to the wonder of the interweb, we were able to locate it. Like, that's the one. Like, but I mean, the reason we're pursuing it is that we both couldn't believe how undeniably catchy it was. It was like instantly catchy. Like, why is this song catchy? I hate this genre of music. Why is this song so great to me? That kind of thing. So
talking about picking covers, though, is that a trial and error process for you too? Are there songs where you've gone, you know what, we should do this, and then you dig into it and it just doesn't work for you?
Ed, do you think I don't think that's ever happened. I mean, if you look at our catalog, I mean, we've done so few covers.
Yeah,
right. So I think the ones that
catalog right here.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever abandoned anything. We've got a few that have never been recorded.
Oh,
we did. What was that song, Nash? We used to play "Treat Her Right," "Treat Her Like a Lady."
Oh yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did that live a couple times. Yeah.
So never recorded
several covers that we just ended up a live thing, but we did do them.
Who is that? Anyway, I forgot.
That's Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose.
And then, outrageously enough, we there's a song by Grand Funk Railroad, "Are You Ready?" We used to open a show with.
Yeah.
Never made it to made it to tape.
But it was a great opener.
Can you still play "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon"? Do you think in this Me Too era?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose if you on paper, it probably seems a bit outdated now. But it's funny, in the 60s, there were so many songs that sort of explored that forbidden fruit. I mean, there was "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon." There was
Chuck Berry made a career out of it.
Yeah, right.
Ringo Starr, Only 16. I mean, there's no shortage.
Yeah, and go away, little girl. That's just downright creepy. If you've ever heard that.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, young girl, get out of my life. My love for you is way out of line. You know, I mean, there's all these songs about, you know, illicit, you know, what would now be considered, you know, quite criminal. But it was all over the radio. I don't know why that became such a hot topic. But the best one of that genre, if you will, of you know, it's got to be Neil's Girl. I mean, you know, because there is an innocence to it. The other ones are so blatant, but you know, this one's just more suggestive and you know and nuancey than the others. But
So-
that's really not why we covered it. It's just you know, again, it was just we just couldn't believe how you know first listen catchy it was.
So I want to talk a little bit about Saturation, which for my money is one of the greatest albums of the era of the 90s. And that's, you know, knowing full well all of the great albums that came out during this decade. You guys are right up there. Did you know what you had in hand while you were making it?
I think we felt pretty good about it. There was a lot of, you know, there definitely was more ahead of us and behind us and then behind us. And we were being propelled, I think, by this brand new sense of like guitar music really being the forefront of the culture, you know. I mean, we weren't like the grunge bands, but we definitely benefited from the primacy of the guitar in the music that was, you know, everywhere. And I think we had this sense of possibility that we were thrown together with these twin brothers. Well, I don't know if they were twins, but the Butcher Brothers twins, Nash?
What's that?
Are the Butcher Brothers twins?
But they're not identical twins, but yeah, I believe they were. What do they call that? Fraternal twins.
Mm-hmm.
It was this outrageous situation where the guy who signed us was a pretty, for an A&R guy, he was pretty good, pretty imaginative. And he sort of he understood how into like soul music we were, and he understood the possibilities for why Urge was different. And he found these guys. He also suggested the Dust Brothers, who Beck, I'm not sure if Beck had worked with them yet at that point. I think he had, but he found these guys who sort of were known for producing rap and had done Jay-Z and had worked in the studio with DJ Muggs, and were coming at it from a whole different perspective. He was really it was Schoolie D was the record that they did. And they were in downtown Philly in this little studio. But somehow our A&R guy knew that they were sort of Beatles. They were process freaks, and they knew all about the recording tricks and the historical, how you get the sort of sounds. I don't want to say retro, but he knew that they were dying to make some other kind of record. And so we had never been in a studio before where you could just say, how did they get this sound? And these guys were living, breathing encyclopedias of recording techniques. And they just explained to us how you do, that's just backwards reverb. You just you grab the tape and they knew all about how you would splice tape to tighten up the drum tracks and all these like, he's like, what, you mean you don't think Zeppelin did this? They even did this to John Bonham, you know,
and
these guys were Philly, and they couldn't believe that they could get back in and do some old-fashioned rock music that wasn't, some they had to stay with the times. They had been dealing with the MPC and the digital recording, the way that you do hip hop on these little, those computers. They had to move from old fashioned recording to doing all the stuff that was required for hip hop, and were dying to get back. And they had a fantastic board. It's a historic Neve board. I don't know what it's been, but the most desirable boards are sort of built like submarine technology. It's incredibly well built. And they had one of these boards, and they were able to kind of run a tag team where they were both fresh and ready to go. And we just had a great, I think part of the reason is we didn't know these guys, and we sort of had sort of an instant love affair with these Butcher brothers, these twins in Philadelphia. And they showed us all about Philly and cheesesteaks and all that stuff. And we just really hit it off. And we were really, there was a lot of mirth in the studio. And I think we were aware that whatever we were doing and whatever they were doing was coming through this Neve, this 60s Neve technology. And what was coming out of the speakers was just transformed into magic. We took a van ride up there to see if it was going to work out. And we came up with a couple of the most in no time flat. I think we came up with 90210, and we maybe did another song, which is just like a gorgeously stripped down. If you listen to that on a really great stereo, it's got what they call the Neve sound. Is just sweet as can be, and you really can hear a musical effect. So it was something where we were, I think, aware that you're not supposed to have this much fun legally in life. And we didn't ever repeat that. We went back to the Butchers for our next record, and things had soured, and we had been through a lot of
and they changed. They moved operations to another studio. It's changed a lot.
Yeah, they moved the room. They got a lot bigger. They were running this huge company, and we had a lot of sort of experience behind us where, when we were making Saturation, it was all like ahead of us, and we didn't know how good the record was going to be. We didn't know really if people were going to take Urge. But I guess the question is, did we know what we had? I think we had an intimation that we really thought it was special, and we wanted to get some of that joy or that sense of fun into the grooves, like the interstitial jokes and the gags that we had amongst ourselves. We were able to put that into the record, and I think you can hear that, like people are having a hell of a good time.
Oh, exactly.
And kick-ass music. But I think that's very rare. It's very hard to do that, to fake, Yeah. And
you can't plan. You can't really plan on that kind of shit.
Yeah, we got lucky.
Yeah. Nash, you had some thoughts, I think.
Oh no, I was just going to add, footnote. This was all pre-Pro Tools. Everything's Pro Tools now. But I mean, not long after we finished it, everything went Pro Tools. And I recall them talking about this new thing, Pro Tools, but thankfully it played no role in that. I mean, any edits or hand cut. I mean, it was all hand cut. I mean, that's how they got the name the Butcher Brothers, because they would just butcher up tape and tape it back together. And now it can be done in seconds with a mouse click. I mean, it could take hours. But they were determined, and so were we. We're on to something. Let's make this as perfect as possible.
Mm-hmm. This was all recorded on this huge, 2-inch tape, and they had all the old microphones. They had all the stuff that the best studios have. They had their ancient 50s tube mics. They had it all calibrated, perfectly well. they had all this stuff that you didn't need to do hip hop, and they were dying to show what they could do. And they really enjoyed that they had some kids, from the next generation who were appreciated, that we were in awe of their talents. And they did do a lot of like the Mary Tyler Moore theme, things like that. I think that was we were just joking around, and the Butcher he just showed up with that thing. He's like, oh, look what I found, look what I made at home. Or he's like, oh, I made a loop for you guys. Why you want to hear this? And that turned into what's the song that Blackie did?
Dropout.
Yeah, he showed up with this sort of beat that he was messing around. He's like, this is really cool. I'm ripping off some stuff from DJ Muggs here. We didn't use it. And he put this up, and we're like, man, that's going on our record. That is so cool. So they did a lot of this stuff, and they had all these cameras, and we had a lot of fun shooting Polaroids and stuff. So it really does take me back. Those were
a lot of cheesesteaks. But I mean, it was Philly. There is, that's why the term "the sound of Philadelphia" exists. I mean, there is something down there that it's one of those musical towns, like Nashville, or there is a Philly sound and just a Philly feel, and that record would have never sounded like that. I mean, with or without the Butchers. I mean, without that, that Philly groove, which a lot of records we grew up with, hailed from, that TSOP, the sound of Philadelphia.
Yeah,
you mentioned things turning sour after that. I mean, now you've got, almost 30 years of hindsight. Are you guys able to go, you know what, this is where the path, diverged, or this is where the boulder fell on us, or, or do you even bother sifting the ashes like that?
We don't really go into that, those, whatever was going on is just kind of forgotten. So we don't dwell on it. I do want to say that they're telling me we've got to wrap it up. And I know we tend to we go off on a certain question. It takes a long time. So if you got some things you need to get to, so we should just
Right.
I just letting you know that they're
problem. Well, here's the thing. I'll give you your last question then. Where does Urge Overkill go from here? What's the future of Urge Overkill?
Well, we're doing it. We're slated for a week-long stint at the Royal Albert Arms in Winnipeg, Canada, Winnipeg, Ontario.
Manitoba.
Oh, sorry.
Manitoba, of course.
Oh.
So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, this record's just dropping. I mean, in January. So, right now it's just doing a lot of press, and the King and I have not really discussed any future plans at this point, but I'm sure it would, entail, some touring, or some performances somewhere, or in some format. I guess a lot of bands do virtual concerts now, which it still boggles my mind, like how that's a live concert, but everything seems virtual these days. So I guess anything goes, but we really haven't gotten that far. I mean, we're just happy that this record finally it's seen the light of day and it's coming out, and we're talking to you. And but I mean, we've put Urge to bed, several times over the the last decades, and but it always rears its ugly head at some point for both of us, and maybe we just get bored with domestic life, and so
but I think suffice it to say we're pretty happy that things seem to be the reception to this record seems to be a bit more spirited than it was 10 years ago. And, we listened to this record and it seems to be just as we were sort of like, back then we were like, well, obviously the better material is going on Rock and Roll Submarine, but I listened to this record and I'm like, this is as good, if not better. And maybe the way it's mastered, it seems to cohere a little more than that record. So, but we're very heartened to hear how excited people are about it. And we didn't know what to expect. This was sort of a surprise that we kept to ourselves till we were sure it was going to be something we wanted to put out. And, I guess we're still we are still, we haven't taken a second to think what's next, you know?
Right.
We're you know, hoping that this gets out to the world as we speak. But thanks for your interest, and maybe we'll talk again, hopefully sooner than a decade.
I
Yes.
hope so too, guys. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time today. I know you got to go. My pleasure talking to you, and I'll reserve a room at the Royal Albert for you.
Thank you, handsome Darrow, Manitoba.